got Mike McDaniel on the line from Hokie Hangover. You can also catch him at his basketball conference podcast, sonsofsaturday.com, ESPN Blacksburg as well, breaking down the ACC bowl games. We've got Wisconsin and Wake Forest matching up in the ACC versus the Big Ten. And your thoughts about the Demon Deacons and of course, what a job Dave Clawson continues to do. And they didn't have as good a season as they typically have, but Wake Forest with another showing in postseason play.
This is a really hard game to predict, in all honesty. Wake Forest played the least amount of games in the ACC this year. They had a ton of COVID problems, which, I mean, we talk about how good of a job that Dave Clawson does on an annual basis here, Mark, but it's even more impressive considering all the issues they had with the pandemic this year and keeping guys healthy and on the field. Then you couple that with the fact that Jamie Newman was gone, obviously a very dynamic quarterback. The fact that Sam Hartman was able to step right back into where he was a couple years ago when he actually started as a true freshman and play good football this year. That was obviously really helpful. You know, they're missing some of their dynamic receivers. Cade Carney at running back was gone. So Wake Forest was up against it this year, and to go 4-4 in a shortened year where they never really knew who was going to be healthy and who wasn't is a testament to Clawson, what he was able to do this year. Wisconsin, on the other hand, it's interesting because I remember when Wisconsin started the year, obviously the Big Ten started the year a bit late this year, and Graham Mertz steps out onto the field, and it's Wisconsin's, you know, it's the first game for the Big Ten this year, right? Graham Mertz steps out on a Friday night and just absolutely lights up Illinois. And he's got more touchdowns than incompletion. I think he had one incompletion in that game. He threw 5 or 6 touchdown passes. He was electric. People were like, oh my God, if he's going to play like this the rest of the year, Wisconsin can not only win the Big Ten, but they could be one of those teams that could be contending for a playoff spot if they were able to, you know, take down a team like Ohio State. Well, Wisconsin ends up going 3-3. Graham Mertz was out of the lineup. Jack Cohn has opted to transfer. He was, of course, the starter before Graham Mertz, and, you know, he's out of the fold now. Wisconsin running the football, it turns out it really helps when you have Jonathan Taylor on your team, and when you don't, it's going to be much harder to run the football. So that was an issue for them this year. And then defensively, it was a bit up and down. So Wisconsin is one of those teams that, you know, we've come to see the consistency with on an annual basis. And this year it was just a total mixed bag. It felt like week to week. So this is a really hard game to predict. I mean, I think top to bottom, a lot of people just assume that Wisconsin's the better team. They're about a touchdown favorite. They have more talent, are able to recruit more talent than Wake Forest is. So I think a lot of people expect that Wisconsin will just kind of roll out the helmets and win the game. But they've been, you know, a total Jekyll and Hyde team on a week-to-week basis. And Wake Forest has been too, but I think they've had a bit more consistency in play when they've been healthy. So that's the big question going in. Of course, going into the bowl game is, can you get enough negative tests produced, right, to have a majority of your starters on the field? And I think if Wake Forest does that, I think they can definitely cover the 7-point spread. Sure, Wisconsin, I think, is the better team. I think they have the better roster. But given how they've been all year long, I could definitely see Wake Forest hanging around this game and making this thing competitive.
Yeah, Wake Forest for a second consecutive year facing the Big Ten. They lost a close one to Michigan State at the Pinstripe Bowl last season. Wisconsin out of the gate blew out Illinois, blew out Michigan. As you mentioned, Graham Mertz looked exceptional in game number 1. He was an Elite 11 quarterback, the top recruited and signed quarterback, Russell Wilson being a transfer ever signed by Wisconsin. And then the Badgers went through a stretch where they lost a lot of close games. Iowa, Northwestern, they also lost to, I'm missing their other loss, but three close losses in which they weren't necessarily, proven to be bettered by the opposition, but turned the ball over 5 times against Northwestern. And so Wisconsin finishes a strange 3-3 campaign in which they were coming off a Rose Bowl campaign last year. If you're looking for star power on the Wake Forest side or just in general in catching these teams for the first time, you got Jacory Roberson, I should say, with 54 catches for Wake, Kenny Walker, 13 touchdowns rushing, and Sam Hartman turned in a nice 10 touchdown to 1 pick ratio on the 2020 season for Wake.
I wanted to say real quick, Mark, that third loss to Wisconsin that was eluding you was against Indiana, which, I mean, nobody's going to sniff at that this year considering how good Indiana was. So, Wisconsin losing a game 14-6 to a very good Indiana team is not something that a lot of people will turn their nose up at.